blue Devotion deck came, I think, into being because it was able to prey upon green decks pretty well.
Sure.
So this will be certainly a test for Danny's deck.
Yep.
And I'll be excited to see how it plays out.
All right, so there's a turn 1 Cloudfin Raptor by Nick, and let's see. It looks like Dan has a pretty good hand. He's going to lead off with the Temple, and he's thinking about the Scry. Do I want to leave it on top? Do I want to put it on the bottom? Dan's hands looks pretty good. I see a Burning Tree Emissary. I see a couple more lands. So we'll see how things play out. Dan's deck is pretty cool. Ash Zealot, Frostborn Weird, Burning Tree Emissary, Boros Reckoner. Pretty similar to the deck that Camille Cornelius made top 8 with at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, so it's still definitely a base red deck. When you say it's devotion, it's devoting to red.
Sure. But it's all 3 colors, green, white, and red. So Nick just had a second island that turn, nothing else, could not really attack with the Cloudfin Raptor, as it's still an 0-1. And Dan is just really setting up his draws for future turns and just kind of sculpting his hand.
Yep. So yeah, the 2 temples there for Danny. We do see in Nick's hand he does have a Thassa as well as a Rapid Hybridization. We're going to see Mutavault be made this turn. He's really just developing the board a little bit. He opts to play the Mutavault and Thassa as opposed to he had a Nightveil Spectre there.
Sure. Did he have another blue for the
I'm not positive he has the island.
I think that was the reason why he only had the Mutavault instead. But in the meanwhile, Danny, again, his 3rd Scryland in a row. And here we could probably see a Ash Zealot come down.
Yeah, he's going to play something. He has a 4th land in Nykthos, but that's all he has for lands.
Okay.
So he wants to be aware of that. He did opt this turn to go Temple as opposed to playing a Domri.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Maybe he's worried that if he plays Domri, now Nick is just going to follow it up with a Nightveil Spectre, and all of a sudden...
And then attack Domri. Yeah, that would
so
be really bad.
Maybe Nick playing Thassa is better there, even if he had Island Nightveil Spectre, because you could turn it on the Devotion next turn and attack for more damage.
So after a long tank, Danny decides to keep the card on top of his deck off the Scry, and does make Ash Zealot.
Sure.
Gets first damage in.
Okay, Nick checks with the Thassa. Does he want to keep the card on top? Does he want to put it on the bottom? As we take a look at his hand, Rapid Hybridization, another Thassa, Nightveil Spectre. There's a Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, that was the card he was deciding on.
Kind of interesting. I guess he's thinking the Frostburn Weird really helps towards his devotion. It also, beefs up Cloudfin Raptor by 1.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't go searching for a land there.
Yeah, maybe
I think the worry is that if he decides to scry the bottom and search for land, if he misses, there are some really bad draws for him.
Sure, yeah, that's definitely reasonable. And he might be worried about falling behind. At least the Frostburn Weird blocks the Ash Zealot.
Yeah, at least it's a card he can play that progresses his board.
Yeah, it's not the best, but it's fine.
Yeah, but it's not the worst.
Yeah. So now Danny has a couple of options. All right, he has a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. He does have 3 copies of that in his deck. His mana base is interesting. 6 mountains, and then a fistful of dual lands.
Yeah, well, he actually has more mana than it looks like.
Because of the Burning Tree Emissary.
Yeah, so he can make Burning Tree. If he makes Burning Tree Emissary to start this turn, he'll have a devotion of 4 to red, which gives him actually Burning Tree Emissary, so he has access to 5 mana this turn.
Okay, and then if he ever gets that Boros Reckoner online, that's going to help a lot more too.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. So he starts off with a Burning Tree Emissary, just like you said.
Yeah, this Nykthos taps for 4 now. And then the 5th land mana is that untapped Temple. The one interesting thing is that because of how he's tapped, he can't play the Domri off this. He's going to go
Purpurose, all right, so that's pretty good. Purpurose is actually a creature right now, which is pretty impressive, and it's really good against the mono blue deck because they don't play much removal at all. Sure, Rapid Hybridization, which Nick actually has in his hand, but other than that, maybe a Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
So I definitely like Dan's line of play. Unfortunately, though, that Rapid Hybridization is really going to come in handy.
Yeah, that'll be good. Nick can keep Danny off of Devotion for at least a turn here. Danny does have to follow up Boros Reckoner to try to cement his devotion to red.
Sure.
But Nick's going to have to get aggressive here. I think the longer the game goes on, Danny's going to get to start making progressively more and more powerful plays. It's going to be hard for Nick to keep pace.
Yeah. Now, would you use Rapid Hybridization, or do you think that Devotion is inevitable and it's a kind of a waste?
Well, he's drawn Tidebinder Mage for the turn, which that does a lot. That brings us a fair ways toward where we want to be. He can tap down something.
Okay.
And then he'll get his Thassa online as well. So he could tap down the Purpurose.
Sure.
Swing with Thassa and Cloudfin Raptor. I think that's a decent way to go about it.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely reasonable. we'll see how things turn out. Maybe saving the rapid hybridization for something like a Stormbred Dragon is a lot more important.
Yeah, it's just because right now the thing he's choked up on is blue mana. If he plays the rapid hybridization, he really can't play anything else.
And he's not really maximizing his value, and the Mutavault could knock it in anyway because Dan would have a 3/3 creature to block it.
So this is a swing for 7 from Nick.
All right, Dan's gonna fall down to 12, and let's see what Dan could do this turn. This is a big turn for him here.
Yeah,
he draws a mountain, pretty good.
Yeah, he can it's possible he will play out his entire hand this turn.
Yeah, does he have another Ash Zealot? Is it Boros Reckoner,
Fanatic of Mogus,
oh, Fanatic,
and
okay.
Domri Rod.
So maybe he wants to.
Yeah, he can't play out his entire hand. He can tap for 5. He has 7 mana available to him, so
yeah,
he can
I think
pick
he wants
2.
I think he wants to go Domri, and then he wants to play the Fanatic. That might be a pretty good line. He could also use Boros Reckoner to fight something.
Yeah, he could.
He can maybe take out 2 creatures from that. So we'll see. So he's going to use the Nykthos. So this gives him 5 red mana. All right, and as you see, he holds up his hand 5 red in the pool. Is it going to? Yeah, it looks like it is going to be Boros Reckoner. So now he has red in the pool. He's going to deal 2 with the Proporos to Nick's face. And he'll most likely just play the Domri Rod here, right?
Yeah, and because Nick has that Mutavault instead of a blue mana, Nick's not going to be able to rapid hybridization in response to this fight.
Yeah.
And this fight.
And it's probably going to be a fight here, right?
I would think so. The fight's very powerful. He can.
Yeah, take out the Tidebinder Mage and take out the Cloudfin Raptor. Yeah, so.
So how it works, they fight. The Cloudfin deals 2 to the Reckoner, which then Reckoner deals back to Tidebinder Mage.
And Proporos is going to be on tap next turn.
Yeah, this is very powerful for Danny.
And we said he needed a big turn, and he got his big turn right here. So it looks like a really good position for Dan. He is at 12, but that's fine. And if you look at Nick's board, he only has 3 mana.
Yeah, Thassa is off, so Nick doesn't really have the ability to race anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's what his plan was, right? He was trying to race. Last turn he dealt 7 damage. Nick really thought that maybe he could have won this game through racing, but now it's, I mean, if he puts down a Jace, is it even going to help?
No, I mean, he's very far behind on mana. Remember, Danny just made 7 mana last turn. Nick still is on 3.
So, I mean, Jace would at least turn on Devotion. He drew a Frostborn Weird. So, now that Nick drew a Frostborn Weird, he's able to have a 5/5 Indestructible with Thassa. But it might not be enough here. We'll definitely see how things play out. Nick's taking his time. I think the whole game really came down to the fact that Nick just got stumped on mana. He really needed to hit his land drops.
He was ahead. He was ahead for a bit here. And
he really was. He started off with a turn 1 Cloudfin Raptor. Turn 2 he didn't have a play. Turn 3 he played Thassa, and that's it. And if you look at Dan's board, Dan has access to all the mana he wants. He could play Stormbred Dragon and the Monstrosity in the same turn essentially.
So we're going to see, Nick's going to continue playing out stuff right now. He's pumping Frostburn Weird to push some damage, but he's very most likely, I mean, he may even be dead on this attack this next turn thanks to the Fanatic of Mogus and Danny's hand.
Yeah, I mean, Domri Rod hits the bin, but that doesn't really matter. There's a draw, there's the hammer. So that's 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11. Yeah, it's lethal right here.
Yeah, Danny can cast both these cards.
Yeah,
thanks to Nick, though.
He can cast both these cards, and it will be 15 damage, I believe.
So yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana.
Right, he has 8 mana. So and I think it's 15 damage.
Yeah, he can cast them both and activate Hammer this turn.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even need to activate Hammer because of the Proporos.
Yeah.
So he's going to take 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, 10.
He's very dead.
12. Yeah, 15 damage. Yeah. I assuming he also activates the Hammer here. And I guess Nick is going to try to do something with the rapid hybridization, but what could he really do?
Well, the Fanatic, when he plays it by itself, is just going to go ahead and deal...
Yeah, exactly, a lot.
That's going to deal 13 right there. That puts Nick to 1.
Yeah, and then activating the Proporos would be 2 more 15. That's what I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
Yes.
Okay. So Dan wins game 1. It really came down to that one turn. It was just a giant turn for him. He was able to, play Boros Reckoner and fight 2 things with Domri that one turn. And that's what it came down to. So let's take a closer look to Dan's sideboard. Dan has Mizium Mortars, he has Anchor of Gods, Assemble the Legions, War Leader's Helix, Mistcutter Hydra. That's pretty cool because normally you don't expect Mistcutter Hydra from the red Devotion deck.
Right, so Mistcutter Hydra is a new weapon for this matchup. Typically, the weapons that have been good in the matchup are cards. I think Anger is considered to be pretty decent in the matchup. It's
pretty good.
It's not great. But
Yeah, it's fine. You know, anything that kills Night Veil Spectre is fine. Anything that handles Master of Waves is fine. You know, it doesn't kill Master of Waves, but it kills the tokens.
Right, so it takes care of the problem more or less.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they're left with only a Master of Waves, it's not that big of a deal. I could definitely see him bringing in the Anger of Gods. What do you think about the Mizium Mortars?
Well, it's how much removal I think it's how much removal does he want to bring in. He does have 3 Chain to the Rocks main and
deck,
an additional one on the board. I think that has precedence over Mizium Mortars.
Sure, that's definitely reasonable.
So
I think he doesn't want the hammers in this matchup.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Hammer's really good against a match like Blue-White Control, Esper, some mid-range matchups, you know, where it's more grindy. He also has Xenaghost in the sideboard, which is pretty cool because he has 1 main deck and he's able to board into a second one, again, in those slower, grindy matchups. Here, he probably doesn't want it. He wants to go for cheap removal and just powerful cards like Mistcutter Hydra. On the other hand, is Nick going to, have a sideboard plan that's different for Mono Red Devotion compared to Naya Devotion, or is it going to be kind of the same cards?
Well, so when you look at, against Mono Red, there doesn't seem to be too much that he has. He has a Rapid Hybridization.
Okay.
He can board into more of that. That can help. That's pretty good at taking anyone off Devotion. Outside of that, he does still have he has a copy of Domestication, which hits a lot of things in the deck.
Okay. What do you think about Swan Song? Just like way too narrow here. It could hit Purple Rose. It could stop Anger of the Gods. Maybe Mizium Mortars if he's expecting it, but overall too narrow.
My guess is that it's too narrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen a couple Swan Songs. Typically, they're played, I think, against control decks.
Yeah, most of the time, you really want to stop something like a Sphinx Revelation, obviously. Just anything powerful. Just for 1 mana where you're giving your opponent a 2/2 flyer, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah, as long as you're countering the key cards. But
yeah, there's only 10 spells in Danny's main deck that it actually counters, which I think, or 12 if you count the Perforos.
Sure, yeah.
That's just a little low, I think, for a card like Swan Song.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely reasonable. So besides for some of the kind of more niche cards, Domestication is definitely going to come in here. Stealing a Boar's Reckoner would be excellent. Rapid Hybridization, like you said, definitely going to come in here. Ratchet Bomb, maybe, right? I mean, Dan has a lot of 2-drops.
Dan has a lot of 2-drops. Nick has to be sure that when he plays Ratchet Bomb, he's not compromising his own board.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Ash Zealot, Frostborn Weird, Burning Tree Emissary.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not he plans to be a control deck in this matchup or whether he stays on the aggro plan. Certainly if he goes control, I think we see Ratchet Bombs, but if he's trying to be more aggressive, I think we probably wouldn't see them.
Yeah, and I agree. If he is going to try to go control, he's probably going to bring in a couple Dissolves too, right? Try to answer some of the big
try to
threats.
contain what Naya is doing.
Yeah, I mean, because if Dan has a couple of, Ash Zealots or like a Burning Tree Emissary, it's not that bad. But if he starts playing like Purple Rose or Stormbreath Dragon or bigger spells, it's really going to get bad for Nick there. So we'll see what happens. Nick will be on the play this game. He is 3-1. So now remember, in a tournament like this, you really want to go X1-1, if not X-1. Sure, you could make top 32, you could make top 64, walk away with some prize. But if you really want to take home the trophy, every loss matters a lot.
Yeah, so, going X into, the second loss does take you out of top 8 contention.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you get your loss this early. The way tiebreakers work is the more you win, the later on in the tournament you lose, the better your tiebreakers will most likely be. So here it's kind of tough, but if you make it to the top 8, you're able to play in one of the invitationals, and there you could go 12-4 and make top 8.
Right.
Take a look at Matt's Teats. 2 times in a row he ran it. So snuck it in 8th place, and he is our invitational winner from a while ago.
So on the play, Nick sees no lands, goes down to 6. Looks like Danny will be keeping. He has boarded in Anger of the Gods in the matchup.
Yeah, we did see that. So it looked like he had a couple lands, Scryland Mountain, Anger of Gods. Pretty good draw on the, on the draw. So very, very powerful hand right there. And, speaking about the Invitational, are you planning to go to the Invitational in Vegas?
I will be in the booth, actually.
You'll be in the booth. All right.
So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that is the last Invitational of the year. But, lots more to come, lots more announcements. So make sure you guys stay tuned to that.
Yeah, we do have a modern gold rush
Yeah, we
happening
do.
in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love the Gold Rush. You go there, it's free mythic rare. Who doesn't love free mythic rares? Who wouldn't want to get a foil Tormaglyph? You know?
All right, so on 6, it looks like we're going to
The hand's good. Couple of islands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on 6 and you have lands and spells, what are you going to do, you know?
Yeah, he has 3 islands, a rapid hybridization, a Thassa, and then another card.
All right, so it leaves off with a Stomping Ground. And Nick drew a Master of Waves. Master of Waves is pretty good here.
Yeah, this is a fine mull to 6.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a little slow, right?
Well, it's lacking those early game enablers. Like, there's no Frostburn Weird here.
Yeah, and I think Frostburn Weird is one of the few ones that you actually want. You know, sure, if your opponent has a creature, you want Tidebinder Mage, but Cloudfin Raptor, you know, Judge's Familiar, all that stuff is just really weak, especially against a deck that does have Anger of Gods.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so that's the one that stays alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, Frostborn Weird. All right, so Dan decides to keep it on top, and there's the Cloudfin
Right.
Raptor, like we were just talking about.
Yeah, right on time.
Yeah. So it looks like Nick's going to play this Thassa here and start, you know, essentially drawing a half a card each turn.
Yeah, on an empty board, probably one of the best ways to improve it is to play a Thassa.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You know, Nick doesn't have to get worried about getting beat down quite yet. And Dan will see what he has here. There's an Ash Zealot he drew off the top. So it's interesting he decided to keep it. He'll play Boros Reckoner and pass the turn.
Yeah, so this is where Danny's deck starts
really building up.
It's a little worrisome for Nick that Danny has the first creature on the board.
That is true, yeah. I mean, especially that Nick was on the play, you would think he would want to be the aggressor here.
Yeah, it is convenient that Danny has a double Anger of the Gods hand, and that Nick really just isn't playing creatures.
Yeah, that is true. But
so
eventually,
he's positioned well. Yeah, I mean, he'd love to have some threats.
Yeah, so there's a Mizian Skin. That's kind of interesting. So it looks like he'll probably want to just play the Cloudfin Raptor. He does have a Night Veil Spectre in hand, but considering he kept the Mizian Skin, he probably wants to protect that Night Veil Spectre because it's a triple blue devotion to help his Thassa. Plus, it's a way to get back that card advantage he lost from the mulligan.
All right, so we see, yep, just the Cloudfin Raptor, and then he passes back the turn.
All right, so there's the Frostborn Weird from Danny. He does have a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. So that's essentially one of the reasons why he probably kept that Ash Zealot on top 2 turns ago. So he could activate the Shrine and not gain any mana here.
Yeah, if he can play something like a Burning Tree Emissary, he'll make
that would
extra
be very
mana.
good, yeah. Let's see if he has that. Is it a Burning Tree Emissary or is it just a Frostborn? Oh, it is a Burning Tree Emissary. So he's going to be able to really unload his hand here.
Yeah, so that's 2 mana. Now he has access to 6 more.
Yep, so he's going to have 6 red in his pool. Well, he has 5 red. Assuming he wants to tap that Stomping Ground, he could have 6 red or 5 red and a green. And he could play Ash Zealot, Frostburn Weird, and Mizian Mortar the Cloudfin Raptor. Do you like that line?
Yeah, he could do Ash Zealot, Frostburn Weird. I'm not sure he has a Mizium Mortars.
Okay, I thought that's what was in his hand.
Yeah, if he has it, sure. I would be fine with clearing his opponent's board.
Yeah. I'm not sure what. Maybe that was a Purpose in his hand.
I think it's 2 Anger of the Gods.
It's just 2 Anger of Gods?
Yes.
Okay, just 2 Anger of the Gods. All right, so there's an Ash Zealot, and there's that Frostborn Weird. Yeah, I believe you're right. So his hand is Anger of Gods, and another Shrine in hand. So, it gives Boros Reckoner first strike. Why not?
Sure, doing it while he has the mana
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And do you think he's going to swing in with both here, or only the Boros Reckoner and try to play around rapid hybridization?
Right, because Nick could hybridize his own creature and block.
Yeah, and I think there was a pause there with a Burning Tree on the stack. So maybe Danny picked up on the fact that, hey, maybe he does have the rapid hybridization. But regardless, he's going to swing in with both. And I think Nyx wants to rapid hybridization his own Cloudfin Raptor.
Yeah, the reason I'd want to do that is because if this game goes according to plan for Nick, he's going to be tapping out the rest of the turns.
Sure.
And he won't have another window to play this rapid hybridization.
And even though it only costs 1 mana, it does. Yeah.
It kills Ash Zealot. The downside to it is that he loses a devotion, so now a Night Veil Spectre will not turn on Thassa.
Would you ever want to kill the Boros Reckoner here and go rapid hybridization on the Cloudfin Raptor and have Mizian Skin backup?
Yeah, and what he's doing is he's just killing the Reckoner.
He's just going to kill the Reckoner?
Yeah. That's reasonable if he doesn't have a good way to deal with the Boros Reckoner. He does have Master of Waves.
Well, I mean, he could have killed the Reckoner by going rapid hybridization on his own Cloudfin Raptor, right?
It has first strike.
But then he has Mizian Skin for +0/+1.
Okay, so then he could go +0/+1.
But, oh no, because he doesn't have enough mana to to do both, to essentially kick it up, to overload. Oh, no, he doesn't need to overload it.
Doesn't need to overload because it'll have hexproof, so the Reckoner's ability can't actually hit the Raptor.
Exactly.
For
So he could have took that line of play, right?
Yeah, so then he'd have it dead, and he'd have a 3/3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's close either way. So we'll see what happens here. Regardless, I think Danny's in a pretty good spot still.
Yeah, I mean, Danny, he's very far ahead on the board.
Yeah. But you are right about the fact that it is fortunate for Nick that Danny just drew 2 Anger of the Gods this game, where the Anger of the Gods are actually, worse for him than they are for Nick.
Yeah, because he got rid of the Reckoner, it does make Anger of the Gods pretty useless on this board.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, and one of the advantages to keeping that Raptor around is that Thassa is now a 5/5.
Yeah, it is. All right. So, oh yeah, that's also true. Yeah. All right, so I kind of like Nick's line of play right there. Really, really interesting, and a lot of decisions here. Again, Mono Blue Devotion is one of the decks with probably the most small, really detailed game decisions.
Yeah, it's nice that by killing that Boros Reckoner, he has really protected his Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Dan's gonna need something good here now. Ooh, instead it's just a Sacred Foundry. Now, Dan does have the option to go Anger of Gods, if he wanted to take out the Night Veil Spectre past the Mizian skin, but then he would just lose his entire board. And again, it would just be...
Yeah, and there'd be an empty board when your opponent has a
Thassa. Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, you really don't. But, I mean, Dan doesn't have any good attacks here.
Yeah, he can hit with Frostburn. No, sorry, Thassa's a 5/5.
Yeah. Just nothing. I mean, he could just essentially play a land and say go.
That's all he really has available to him.
And I mean, is that a winning play? Probably not, but...
Probably not. You're trying to draw into things like a Fanatic of Mogus at that point, or something else that can further push his board state. A Perforos.
Stormbreath Dragon.
Stormbreath would be good.
All right, so it looks like Dan is actually going to go double Anger of the Gods. I mean, this basically makes sense by him kind of suicide attacking here.
Yeah, this suicide attack really does indicate that he's going to play Anger of the Gods.
Yeah, so it looks like the Night Veil Spectre would probably jump in front of the Ash Zealot, and the Thassa would probably jump in front of the Frostborn Weird. Would that make the most sense?
From Nick's point of view?
Yeah. Like not knowing Danny's hand. Because you really can't put him on double Anger of the Gods. You might think maybe he has 1 Anger of the Gods. Maybe he's doing this for some other reason that he's not, really thinking about. Because Dan's deck is kind of unique. Sure, it's the mono red devotion deck, but it's splashing green and white. So
the thing is that this is the most straightforward block. Frostburn Weird has the potential to do the most damage, so kill that.
Okay.
And Night Veil Spectre kills the best creature it can.
Sure. All right. That definitely does make some sense here. So we'll see what Danny wants to do. He's going to bring Nick down to 13. But I mean, at 13, Nick's fine. If he was on 7 or 6, then he might get worried.
And I think that's why this is a little aggressive. I think Danny's feeling the pressure of not having any other plays, and he's feeling like he's in a really hard spot, which he is.
Yeah.
But he's eliminating all his devotion by making this play, and now he's going to have to play off an empty board.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think a lot of people feel a lot of pressure when your opponent plays a Night Veil Spectre.
I mean, as you should.
Yeah, and they really get worried. They're like, wow, Night Veil Spectre, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And, all right, so there's an Anger of Gods from Dan. And, I mean, this is just fine for Nick. It really is. It's going to just be an empty board, and he's going to have a Thassa in play. He's going to have access to 4 lands, all the lands he needs, and he's still going to be holding on to that Mizian skin for later in the game when he draws a threat.
Yeah, he hasn't. Doesn't he have a Master of Waves?
Yeah, and he has the Master, too. His 2 cards are Mizian skin, Master of the Waves. I mean, granted, Master's only going to make 2 guys, but 2 guys is definitely enough.
Yeah, and because he couldn't save his Night Veil Spectre with Mizian skin there, remember, because it had already taken 2 damage off Ash Zealot.
Exactly. Very good point. All right, so there's the Scry from the Thassa. I really like these players. Pretty much everyone is remembering their Thassa trigger, and they're taking time when they're looking at their card. It's not just like, oh, I don't want it, I do want it. They're actually thinking, how is the game going to progress? So there's a Mutavault, and here comes the Master of Waves. That will net him 2 Element tokens, essentially 2 2/1s.
Yep.
They're Elementals?
They're Elementals. They're Elementals. They pump. Of note, Master Waves also pumps Mutavaults and Vaporkins if he chooses to run them.
Yeah. All right. So Dan draws for his turn. There's a Frostburn Weird. So I think Dan is probably just going to run out Frostburn Weird and Anger of the Gods. That would make the most sense, right?
He may choose to wait on Anger of the Gods for a turn even. It's
Because
not
he
enough,
has
it's
Frostborn
not enough
Weird?
value yet.
Yeah, it's just
All it kills is 2 elementals.
okay. That's fair. Maybe he wants to wait for something better, like a Night Veil Spectre, and
Yeah, he wants to take more with it because it's the only card left in his hand, so it's
Okay.
got to do some work.
sure, that's definitely reasonable. All right, so there is a Night Veil Spectre. So now Danny probably thinks he's going to be able to Anger of the Gods it away, but Nick does have that Mizia skin in hand,
Right.
and Night Veil Spectre turns on Devotion.
Right, so Thassa now is able to accompany Master Waves on an attack. Remember, Master Waves has protection from red, so this is a swing of 7, putting Danny down to 12.
Yeah, all right, so Dan draws for his turn. Maybe like a Stormbright Dragon would be really good here. Fanatic, not going to cut it when Nick's on 13. Shrine's not going to net him any mana. So probably the best line is for Dan is just to Anger.
Yeah, I think at this point he needs to Anger of the Gods, not so much to kill stuff, but he has to take Thassa off the table.
Yeah. And I mean, this is really cool. This really shows the power of the mono blue Devotion deck, that even though it didn't get the fastest start, it just went, turn 3 Thassa, and from there it's just build up, build up, build up, and look at it is where it is now.
Yeah, what I think is that the Danny's deck had its good early game, but it didn't really have any of its late game cards. It didn't draw its Stormbreath Dragon or Purphoros or Fanatic or, Domri in time.
And there's that Mizia skin we've been talking about, so it's going to give the Night Veil Spectre +0/+1, so
And
essentially
that's a huge
a 2/4, yeah.
Because now the Thassa is still online,
Exactly.
and he gets to hit with Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, I mean, Danny's on lethal, essentially. All he has is that Frostborn Weird, but if Nick could have an answer to the Frostborn Weird, he has lethal on the table. Between Mutavault, Master of the Waves, no, it's just lethal, right?
He's dead to a land.
Is he
no,
dead?
No, it's actually just dead on board.
No, I think he's dead to a land. It's either dead to a land or just dead on board, because he needs to activate the Mutavault, and he needs to give Thassa... Well, now that he attacked, he's just dead on board.
There has to be another land to make the Mutavault unblockable.
No, well, he doesn't need to make it unblockable. Danny just attacked with his guy.
Okay, then it is just dead on board.
Yeah, so it's just dead on board. So let's see if Nick sees it. I think he will.
Activates.
And there it is, 12
He's gonna
damage.
swing,
Yep, and that's it.
Yeah, that just...
I think Danny doesn't realize that Mutavault is a 3/3.
So you thought he would be going to 1.
Yeah, I think he thought he would be going to 1, and then he would... Okay. So there it is. But even if he thought he was going to be going to 1, I wonder...
Can't be happy with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, well, regardless, yeah, I guess Danny thought he could... I mean, he couldn't have done enough damage at all, because that turn Frostborn Weird could have only attacked for 1 damage, which it did. Even though Danny had 2 mana open, he could not pump the Frostborn Weird because of the Anger of Gods. So
Right.
if he, the 3 damage is still on the Frostborn Weird.
So it's just, so the most he could do is 1 with
1
it.
damage, yeah, exactly, which he did. And then that brought down Nick to 12. And I guess Danny thought maybe because he had Fanatic in his hand, he drew something else, might have been able to burn him out. Regardless, we're going to a game 3. Dan's going to be on the play this time. Is he going to change a lot, or is it going to be the same matchup?
I think one of the difficulties with playing that game from Danny's side is that his deck is a deck that normally wants to play at 1 speed. It wants to be aggressive,
Yes.
curve out, and attack. And sometimes when you're used to playing a deck at 1 speed, you just start playing every game at that speed.
Okay.
I think this is a game where, at one point he needed to put on the brakes, and Nick was at 18. I think he needed to stop attacking at some point there.
Sure.
It's like, because the attacks only were able to get Nick down to 12.
Okay, that's definitely reasonable. And, Dan was on the draw, like you were saying. Now that he's on the plays, it might be a bit better. Now that he's on the play, is he going to board out those Anger of Gods? Because they weren't that good for him that match, or for that game. Think it wants to board him out?
Well, they certainly don't win games like you'd expect a sweeper to. The thing about the blue deck is very resilient to being swept.
Yes.
Especially Thassa grants that resilience.
Yeah, Thassa, Master of the Waves, even like Frostborn Weird, because he's going to have his own Frostborn Weird, Nick. So he's not worried about Anger of Gods there. I think Anger of Gods probably should be cut.
Yeah, I think the most you can hope for is a 2-for-1 with Anger of the Gods. And the thing is that if Danny has a creature of his own in play that's an X3, then it's not even card advantage anymore.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about Assemble the Legions? Could you ever see Dan bringing in Assemble the Legions in this matchup, or no?
I think it's just too expensive. If he landed one, it would be pretty good.
Yeah.
It might even still be able to be raced, though.
With Thassa?
Well, yeah, these mono blue devotion decks, we've seen a lot of games involving them, and I don't know. I think they've all been done by turn 7.
Okay.
And Assembled Legion isn't good on, it doesn't get good till turn 9.
Yeah, turn 8, turn 9, you're definitely right. Yeah, so Assembled Legion is probably way too slow. So essentially his power card in the sideboard is Miscut or Hydra. But if you had access to green mana, don't you think you would want more than 2 Mistcutter Hydras, or you think 2 is the right number? Because we saw, the other deck on camera had 4 Mistcutter Hydras.
Yeah, 4 is a huge commitment to Mistcutter Hydra. This deck doesn't have any mana acceleration. Well, it has Nykthos outside of Nick, but it doesn't have, the other decks we saw, I think the black-green aggro deck, which we saw 4 of.
It has the Elvish Mystics, you're right.
Mystics.
Yeah, so it does help a little. I have to agree with you there. But yeah, I think the big cards that are coming out of this weekend, just walking around the room, definitely Reaper of the Wilds, and I think it's going to continue with Mistcutter Hydra. I think Mistcutter Hydra is going to get more and more popular because Mistcutter Hydra is actually good against some other decks besides the blue decks. Just making a big monster that has haste is good.
Yeah, it's a card. The creature quality is pretty high,
Yeah, it is. So we'll see what happens here. Again, Dan is to your right, Nick is on your left. Both players are 3-1, so this could be, quote unquote, the last game for them in this tournament where they're playing for top 8. It could come down to this. They only have about 19 minutes to play game 3. I don't think it'll be a problem. Both players seem to be playing pretty quick, and the match in general doesn't really take that much time.
Yeah, no, we should have plenty of time for game 3. Now remember, Danny will be on the play this game, having lost game 2.
Yep, we see a Boros Reckoner. We see at least 1 land.
Yeah, it looks like both sides will be keeping.
Yeah, a couple of lands for each player. Yeah, all right. So Dan with a 2-lander, I believe. Actually, even a 3-lander. I think I see a mountain in the middle there.
Yep, he has 2 temples and a mountain, a Boros Reckoner, and Frostburn Weird.
Ash Zealot, maybe, is that?
And 2 others that are hard to identify.
A pretty good hand, though.
Yeah, it's got lands, it's got a curve.
Yeah. All right, so leads off with a Temple, decides to keep it on top. Nick draws a Thassa, and he does have a Cloudfin Raptor, so a decent start for him,
This time he gets to play it on turn 1.
Yeah, that's good. So what did Dan keep on top? He kept the Mizium Mortars on top, all right? And he's going with the Frostborn Weird and passing the turn. Now, do you think Dan's trying to think, I'm going to try to overload this, or I'm going to try to save it for protection for a master?
It looks like that card Dan has put in War Leader's Helix actually out of the board. So he's really taken on a control route. He's boarded in Mizium Mortars, War Leader's Helix, Anger of the Gods, and I would assume another Chain to the Rocks if he's boarding in those.
I mean, do you think there's any chance he swapped those Anger of the Gods out for the War Leader's Helix for game 3?
It's possible. Either way, it seems to indicate that he wants to play this from a control side.
Okay, that's definitely fair. So Dan's paying 2 life from the Sacred Foundry, probably indicating a Boros Reckoner, which he does play. And this is a good draw. Turn 2 Frostborn Weird, turn 3 Boros Reckoner. You're on the play. Your opponent only has a Cloudfin Raptor down, so things are looking, pretty good for Danny over here.
Well, what Danny has now is he has a lot of removal. He has Mizium Mortars, he has War Leader's Helix. He does have a Burning Tree Emissary, which is only okay right now.
Sure.
But he also has a Temple, which is good in this deck because the deck is playing off the top a lot.
Exactly. All right, so Nick is taking his turn here. He's really, taking his time. The obvious play here might be just a turn 3 Thassa, but if he has another option, he's definitely considering it.
Well, turn 3 Thassa was really good for him last turn, even when his opponent had creatures in play. This game, he's on the draw, so he's going to take an extra 5 damage for choosing that line.
And, I mean, Boros Reckoner's damage really adds up. And you have to remember, late game, the Reckoner could deal a lot more.
Yeah. It's hard to remove a Reckoner without taking some number of damage.
Exactly. Okay, so there's a Frostborn Weird drawn by Danny.
Yeah. Thanks to Burning Tree Emissary, he can cast both of them.
Yeah. And he still does have that War Leader's Helix in hand, which could go to the dome, The Mizium Mortar could only go to your opponent's creatures, but the War Leader's Helix could go anywhere. So scrying to the bottom. What line do you like here? Attack? Do you like any pumps, maybe?
I either want to pump Weird 3 times or 0 times.
Well, what about once and just follow it up with a Frostborn Weird? Would that ever make it?
2 Frostburn Weirds
is not that good?
Is not good because you have to spend so much mana pumping them both. I think the second one, I like the line he's taking here, which is
the Emissary,
no pumps, then Emissary and Weird.
Yeah, and he'll have a green mana floating, which will essentially evaporate into thin air.
Yes.
All right, so Nick draws after the scry. Oh, so it looks like he's still thinking about it. He took a look at it, he put it back. What is he really searching for here? Is he going to keep it? No, he's going to put on the bottom.
He has plenty of removal. He has a Cyclonic Rift and a Rapid Hybridization. He also has some lands.
Okay, and he just drew a Mizian Skin.
Right.
So what is he going to do to get out of this? He's facing down Frostborn Weird ×2, a Boros Reckoner, and a Burning Tree Emissary. And Dan still has pieces of removal in his hand. Ward Leader's Helix, Mizium Mortars.
Yeah, Nick's life total is going to get low quick.
Yeah, it really is.
He wants to try to build toward, his game plan is to stay alive as he builds toward Thassa Devotion.
Okay.
Because once he has a Thassa Devotion in play, then the only card that Danny can still attack with is Boros Reckoner.
Yeah. Or he's going to have to try to draw one of his Chain to the Rocks.
Right.
He does have the Mountain there with Sacred Foundry and just Mountain in general.
Yeah,
So-
Nick actually has a Domestication in hand right now as well.
Oh,
which is-
wow.
that's very strong. I imagine that will be taking Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, and Domestication makes him just one away from Devotion. He'll have 4 in the form of 1 from Thassa, 1 from Cloudfin Raptor, and Domestication is 2 colorless and blue-blue. So it'll just be 1 away. It seems like a pretty strong play here.
Yeah, it's a little painful because he's going to take a lot of damage by doing this.
Yeah.
This turn, next turn, he'll take damage.
Yeah, he'll take a lot of damage too. So depending on if Dan draws a land or has land in his hand, I mean, Nick could go all the way down to 6 life.
Right.
So we'll see what happens here. I mean, he does have the Cloud from Raptor to chump, which he'll probably have to do.
And a huge draw from Danny. That's more burn in the form of Storm Breath Dragon.
Yeah. Now, if I'm Dan right here, I kind of like Mizium Mortaring the Cloudfin Raptor, pumping my Frostborn Weirds, and just attacking Nick down to 9.
What I would do is just swing the team and pump the Frostburn Weirds.
And just hold on to the Mortars?
Just hold on to everything.
Okay.
That's the way to get the most bang for your buck out of the cards in your hand.
Sure. And again, this Mono Red Devotion deck, although it's called Mono Red from the Pro Tour, Danny decided to add some white, decided to add some green, and now it's a Naya Devotion deck, he's calling it. So it looks like he's taking your line. He's just going to attack and, put the pressure on Nick. Nick has to decide, do I want to chump block? If I do, what do I want to block?
Remember, if Danny kind of has 8 points of burn in his hand.
With the Stormbreath Dragon as well?
Stormbreath Dragon and War Leader's Helix. So he was able to do 8 damage here, putting Nick to 7. So Danny has, you could say Danny has lethal burn in his hand thanks to this attack.
Okay, so let's see what Nick's going to do now to try to get out of it. All right, so there's a scry check from Thassa. We see a hand of Rapid Hybridization. We see Island. We see Mizian Skin. And the last card back there is a Cyclonic Rift. So that is his hand. So we have access to his entire hand. He's going to put whatever card that was on the bottom. He's going to draw another Island. Not really helpful here.
No, Nick's deck has no life gain in it, which is important to note because of this lethal burn situation.
Exactly.
He can rapid hybridize the Storm Breath Dragon.
Sure.
So that 4 points, if you're counting 4 points from Storm Breath, you have to back up. That's not a guarantee.
Exactly. Now, Nick really needed a blue permanent there to turn on Thassa. That's what he really needed.
He doesn't have one.
Yeah, because if he actually turned on Thassa, he could have started to race Dan. But now, not so much. There's a draw. Oh, there's a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. So that's going to give him enough mana for him to play the Stormbreath Dragon.
Well, he needs 12 mana to cast and Monstrous the Dragon.
Sure.
Well, because what he can do is if he can have 12 mana, he can play Storm Breath and attack with it.
Yeah.
And then Nick can't rapid hybridize it because Danny will, in response, Monstrous it.
Sure. All right. I think, well, I mean, even if he, in response, destroys it, well, it's still gone.
Actually, sorry, you can't make that play because you can't float all that extra Nykthos mana into the combat step.
Yeah, so you would have to do it in response to you have to do it before the attack step.
And that will get it to be
Yeah,
rapid.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you had the mana just sitting around, you could force the dragon through.
Yeah. But I think Dan's in such a good spot here that he can just play Stormbreath Dragon and just see what Nick does. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. All right.
Okay, that's...
So there's a Stormbreath Dragon from Danny. So
at this point, I like Mortarsing the Cloudfin Raptor.
Okay, because you're trying to force in that 4 damage. You don't want him to jump block.
Yeah, I wasn't totally so... I mean, I think you can go either way. Yeah, you just want to get 3 damage across.
Sure. Okay, so Dan's definitely taking his time here, thinking all his options. He's so close to winning that you don't really want to give anything away. All right, so he decides just to attack with the Stormbreath Dragon.
And that's going to get turned into a Frog Lizard.
Yeah, most likely because Nick doesn't want to lose any of his blue permanents here. So there's a Rapid Hybridization on the Stormbreath Dragon. And Dan's probably just going to, pass the turn back. He's fine with that.
He has to be careful. Nick is 2 lands away from overloading that Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, that is true. That would definitely set him back. So, oh, a Master of Waves. Okay, very good draw for him there.
Absolutely.
So now I think you have to play Master and actually swing in with the Thassa. Maybe even get greedy and swing in with the Boros Reckoner. Who knows? All right, there's Master. No, I guess he can never swing in with the Boros Reckoner. It would just be way too dangerous.
Well, it's not.
Because he doesn't want to lose his devotion to blue.
Yeah, he actually can evolve that Cloudfin Raptor twice right now.
Yeah, he could.
Oh, yeah, he can't let domestication go away.
Yeah, exactly.
He can't afford to.
Yeah, the Boros Reckoner is just going to stay there for,
He can make it unblockable.
Oh,
but
that
I
is
think
true,
he'd rather leave up the Cyclonic Rift right now.
Yeah, I
There's
think so
just
too.
Too many things that could go wrong.
Yeah. I like a lot of your lines, and, I think Nick is doing a really good job here. He's swinging in with the Cloudfin Raptor and the Thassa, which we thought he would do.
Just the safe attackers.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Nick's definitely playing this game safe, and he's definitely playing it pretty smart, I would have to give him credit for.
Remember that because Danny didn't play the Mortars last turn, he can overload it this turn. Which
He could overload it this turn.
And most likely will overload it.
Yeah, so if he overloads it, where do you think that Boros Reckoner damage is going to go?
To one of the creatures.
Yeah, probably the Frostborn
Pro.
Weird. One of them maybe. Maybe one of the lizards, or the only lizard.
Hard to say. I would think it would go to the lizard.
Yeah, all right. So now if Dan plays Frostborn Weird and uses the Shrine.
It would definitely go to lizard because the Master of Waves has Pro Red.
Okay, yeah. Very good call there. Yeah, so this game's pretty close.
Yeah, I think if Danny mortars here and then swings, he's in a very good spot.
Do you think Dan's in a good spot? I was thinking Nick is in a pretty good spot.
After the post mortars, I don't know. I think I'd rather be Danny on this board, but it's very close.
Thassa. Because what happens if Nick just goes to Danny's head with the Boros Reckoner? It could be lethal next turn with Thassa and Master if he were to draw something that would
That's
turn on the
double
top.
blue?
Well, it would have to be triple blue, right? Like a Night Veil Spectre?
You'd have to draw a Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, Night Veil Spectre. But, I mean, at least it would give some hope. Also, Nick does still have the Cyclonic Rift in hand.
Yeah, so we might see him rift the Frog Lizard because it's actually just a kill spell for it.
Okay.
Unless Nick thinks he can live through this turn, which means he can maybe be playing to rift Danny's whole board. The thing is, he doesn't know about that War Leader's Helix in Danny's hand.
Exactly.
Like, there's no way. First of all, he hasn't seen a single white card out of his opponent all match.
Yeah.
There's no way that he can possibly be thinking about War Leader's Helix.
Yeah. I do think that Reckoner damage should go to Danny's head here.
We will see where it's at.
Let's see. I hope he didn't forget the trigger because it is you couldn't miss that trigger now, right?
You can miss the trigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's try to get confirmation on that. Where did that damage go? Okay, so they're still in the tank.
Yeah, he's tanking about the damage.
He's tanking.
It's hard. So the options are you can kill the Frog Lizard, you can go upstairs with it, or you can kill a Frostburn Weird if you're planning to rift the Frog Lizard.
Yeah, it's close. So now Danny, his only attack is with the Frog Lizard, right?
He could push. Well, no, actually, he can swing the team. So
But then the Master just takes out the Burning Tree.
And Nick will take 3 from the Weird, dropping him into a convenient 4 life.
And because the damage didn't go to Danny, he doesn't even have to worry about a top deck Night Veil Spectre.
Right.
Ooh,
I think I'd swing the whole team.
Yeah, I think swinging the whole team is pretty nice here.
See, he's going to take 0 off this swing, however.
Yes, I don't like just that swing there, but let's...
Well, Burning Tree said he can't block anything. I mean, yeah, I think if you swing all 3, you at least get 2 damage across and possibly 3.
Sure. All right, so that's Danny's attack there. Wow, this mono blue devotion deck, lots of times it's looking pretty bad for it, but it could surprisingly really steal some games.
And he lucked out here. Nick not playing around War Leader's Helix did not bounce the Frog Lizard token. He took 3.
Yeah, and let's see what is on top of Nick's decks here.
Remember, Nick is dead on the untap.
He is dead on the untap, but he doesn't know this yet.
No.
No. But Danny knows it. And Danny's probably
Danny's
pretty
hoping
happy.
for
yeah.
it. You know, blue decks sometimes play counter spells.
Sure.
So he's got to be concerned.
Yeah. I mean, Nick does have Dissolve in his sideboard, so...
I mean, to be honest, Nick Danny might be able to kill Nick with the combat step.
You think just with the combat step, depending on what...
Right now he can.
Yeah, I mean, if Nick doesn't draw anything.
Yeah. You know, what I would do is if Nick plays a 7th land, I'd go to attacks, then let Nick rift my whole team, and then
just
say,
to
oh,
be tapped out, yeah.
No, you're tapped out, then I'll burn you.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely fair. Definitely a good play there. So it's Mizian Skin, Mutavault only.
He's drawn the Mutavault, so
just the Mutavault.
Active player, please finish your turn and proceed to the
So it looks like Nick
if he's all in on that line, he could just like telegraph it to his opponent. He could swing Master Waves right now.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it is correct, right?
Yeah.
If you're 100% committed to rifting,
Yeah.
don't you just swing the Master?
All right, so he just passed the turn. So it looks like Danny's just going to be able to Ward Leader's Helix him out. What's his draw for? Oh, it draws a Stormbright Dragon.
Or he could do that.
With the Shrine, that's +4, so he only has 7 mana.
Shrine is 5, so it's 7. Yeah, he can.
Yeah. No, Shrine is 6. So
6. He has 8.
8 mana, yeah. So one mana short right now. I wonder if Danny's just going to War Leader's... I mean, I feel like Dan's the type of guy who would just War Leader's Helix him, you know?
The safest play, I believe, is to just go to combat. Is to start by going to combat.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Just go to combat. Not even play the Stormbright Dragon.
It's not a slow roll because blue plays counter spells.
Sure. Now, is there any way Nick could actually win this game somehow if Dan, you know, doesn't go to combat and plays a Stormbright Dragon first or whatnot, or no?
I mean, the problem is Nick's line to winning involves Danny not casting War Leader's Helix this turn, which I just don't see happening.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely fair.
Like, at some point, between this and Nick's next end step, Danny's going to try for War Leader's Helix.
All right, so it looks like he's only attacking with Frostborn Weird, and the Lizard. No Burning Tree Emissary, kind of interesting. Especially when you have, like, Helix in hand, that's the game winner. You want to just put the most pressure on to force him to do something, right?
Yep. This is a lethal attack. I still don't get why Burning Tree's not coming to the party, but that's fine.
Well, I mean, essentially, it's not a lethal attack, right? He could activate Mutavault and just put Mutavault in front of a Frostborn Weird, put Master in front of the Frostborn Weird.
Yep, then he only takes 3, goes to 1.
Yeah, he only goes to 1. I mean, regardless,
right.
I think Dan...
Like, Weird would eat a Mutavault for free, which is...
Yeah.
No, wait, Mutavault's a 3/3.
Yeah, Mutavault's a 3/3, yeah.
Yeah, no, Mutavault's awesome.
They would actually trade off, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so both players really being super cautious, thinking about everything, especially Dan. Dan's just thinking about, you know, pretty sure I have this game won. Is there any way I could actually blow this game? So...
I mean, you'd love to get your opponent to overload a Cyclonic Rift.
Yes. And then there's no worry there. Basically, when you have the nuts, you have the nuts, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so Nick is really tanking on this. I feel like there's some players here that might
untap and immediately
yeah,
Helix.
You know,
like, I gotcha.
Or just show him the Helix. Be like, I know you didn't board any counter spells in. Come on, let's be serious here.
Or that'd even be, do you have the counter? Because you just want to know if you've already won.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think Nick thinks he's not dead, but he has to think that it's kind of weird that the Burning Tree Emissary didn't come in. So, I mean, if he goes to blocks here, then he's forced to use the Cyclonic Rift. Like, if he doesn't activate the Mutavault.
Yes.
So, he's definitely in the tank.
Well, either way, he could make blocks to try to get Danny to tap mana to pump his... If you're going to go for the Rift play, if you're committed to the Rift play, you block and make your opponent tap mana to pump. So that you waste his mana. He's to make him waste his mana.
Sure. So, Nick's really thinking about it. I think after a certain point, Dan should just be like, I got the War Leader's Helix, didn't mean the slow roll.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that Nick may feel that this is a slow roll when it happens, but it really isn't.
Yeah, it's not a slow roll. Dan is just, you know.
Nick does have counterspells in his 75. And
yeah, that is true.
You know.
So, it looks like Mutavault is going to jump in front of the Frog Lizard. So now, because he didn't attack with the Burning Tree Emissary... Yeah, I think Dan should have definitely attacked with the Burning Tree Emissary.
This would be a lethal attack.
Because then he could have just went, okay, pump Frostborn Weird for 1. Now I have 4 facing down. What are you going to do?
So he's going to float 6.
With
so,
the- yep.
so he's going to pump Frostburn Weird up to lethal so that he has enough mana to War Leader's Helix.
All right, so
So that's 6. 3 of the mana is going to go into Frostburn Weird,
Sure.
leaving 3 more.
yeah, he doesn't even need to use a shrine here essentially if he would have attacked with the burning tree like we said before.
Correct.
But let's see what Nick's going to do. Most
I
likely,
mean, he has to Cyclonic
Cyclonic
Rift,
Rift.
the Frostburn Weird.
yeah. And then is Dan going to go for the War Leader's Helix or not yet?
I think so.
You think so? All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it still doesn't play around Dissolve or anything, right?
No, it doesn't really play around anything else.
And let's see. All right, that should be it. I'm kind of interested in seeing if Nick actually thinks this is a slow roll or not.
No, it's a Mizius.
No, okay, so there it is. All right, shake of the hand, and Dan is going on to be 4-1, which is pretty good. Pretty good start. Halfway there,
Where
you're
you
4-1.
Yeah, it's a great place to be halfway through the
We're
tournament. You have to
halfway
win.
there.
Yeah.